Bhagavan Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, yajña dāna tapak karma na tyajyam karyam eva tat. Yajño dāna tapak karma pavanani manishinam. Whatever happens, don't give up these three things. Shri Krishna advises everyone. What are the things? Three things: yajña, dāna, and tapa. What is yajña? You think offering the oblations in the fire and chanting mantras and then seeking boons and blessings in return, that is yajña. But that is not true yajña. That is one kind of yajña. There are 5 kinds of yajña. And that is only one yajña, dravya yajña or daiva yajña. But for me, more important yajña is bhuta yajña or manushya yajña, where we offer things to fellow human beings, fellow creatures, fellow beings, whether human or animal or bird species or any living creature. We offer them our actions, in the sense we do actions that will benefit them. As Sri Krishna also mentions, yajñat karma samudbhavaha, all actions should be yajñas. Whatever we do it for the sake of greater good of all, then that action itself becomes yajña. So while yajñas happen on certain festivals and certain days, and for Agnihotras, it's everyday practice. But for all common people, yajña should be simply performing actions that are beneficial to all, for the greater good of all. So that you should not give up, Sri Krishna says. Whatever you do it with the thought of the greater good of all. That is yajña. Then dāna, sharing what you don't need with others whose need is greater, that is dāna. You might have it more with you. You have earned it righteously. By all means, you can have it. You can enjoy it, but you decide not to do it because you see somebody's need is greater than yours, and therefore you share it with them. Generally, dāna is thought of as giving because it is born out of deyam or to give. But dāna is far greater than that. To me, dāna is simply sharing, not giving. Giving means somebody richer gives to somebody poorer. But dāna is, in my understanding, should be sharing what we do not need with others whose need is greater. Because we are equals in the eyes of God. So that is the idea of dāna. And tapaha. What is tapaha? That burning desire to know God, to know your truth is tapa. All tapas like doing meditation or chanting mantras or other vratas and upavasas, they're all physical tapas. But real tapas is mano tapas. In mind, you should be having burning desire to know your truth, that you are God. And how do we know that? Only in a pure mind does God reflect in its entire glory. And pure mind is what you obtain by doing yajña dāna tapak karma pavanani manishinam. All human beings become pure by doing these 3 things, which is to perform all actions for the greater good of all, to share what you have, which you do not need, with those whose need is greater. It could be your knowledge also, it's not always wealth. It could be a piece of clothing, it could be your knowledge, it could be your time, it could be anything that you can afford to share with somebody else. Please share. And that is done with the idea that I must continuously remember who I am, and I should realize that I am none other than divine. And that will happen only if our minds are pure. And purity of mind comes from these 3 things, is what Sri Krishna says. So he says, even if you do it in a faulty way, do not give up, because he himself says, some people say, if you don't do it well, just don't do it. You don't do yajña properly, then don't do it. You don't do dāna properly, then don't do it. Shri Krishna says, even if there is some fault in it, yet do it for the greater good of all. It's better than not doing it at all. Many people are there, some children, some even elders tell me, Swamiji, should I even tell anybody else to do this, because I am myself not following it. I am your teacher, but I don't follow what you say. Then how do I tell it to others? Because you tell first practice, then preach. Then I tell them, even if you are practicing it in a faulty way, still you are practicing, therefore you still deserve to preach it. But don't just preach by not practicing at all. You have put efforts, you have tried to practice, still there are faults in your practice, there are shortcomings. I will forgive you for that. But you should still have the effort to tell others about it. And that is very important. So to spread this good knowledge, just because I am not self-realized, I have no authority to speak about self-realization to anybody. If you think like that, then nobody will get to know about a concept like that. However, when you speak, as they say, when one teaches, two learn. So when you are speaking to others about these great concepts, inspiring them, in return, you are also getting inspired in the same process. So that makes you commit yourselves with greater vigor to these ideas that I have not done yajña properly, I have not done dāna properly, I have not done my tapas properly. It is a reminder to you when you talk about it to others. So do speak about it to others, do talk about it to others, at the same time do try to practice it. And Sri Krishna says under no circumstances one should give up these three things. Because once we give up these three things, society falls into a disarray. People forget their duties, the lesser privileged ones suffer more, and then there is no sense of spiritual evolution in the societies. They degenerate because nobody wants to be realizing God, nobody wants to realize the truth. It means it will deteriorate soon into an animal society where khana, pina, sona and marna is the four basic purusharthas. So that is the society we will devolve into if we don't do these actions of charity and compassion and for the greater good of all. At the same time, always be reminded of the goal of life, which is to attain the knowledge that we are not different from God, but that knowledge happens to those whose minds are free of all selfishness. Purity of mind is selfless mind. Impurity is selfishness. When it's about I, me, myself, it's an impure mind. When you do anything and think of the greater good of all, it becomes a pure mind. So it's a process. And you will realize over a period of time, the more selflessly you live, the more selflessly you give, there is a greater power in the universe, there is a greater mechanism in the universe which takes care of your welfare without your knowledge, without your realization. And that fearlessness and selflessness is what makes you a pure person. Nothing else makes you pure. Going to Ganges and dipping yourself 100 times won't make you pure. It may make Ganges dirty, but not you pure. You go to the Himalayas and hang yourself upside down from a tree branch will not make you pure. You go to any other pilgrimages with this selfishness in your mind, you will never become pure. It's like washing the vessel from the outside and not the inside. So anytime you pour, it will become dirty again. You see, in the old times, now I think milk comes in packets and bottles, but in old times, milkmen will come and deliver the milk at doorsteps very early in the morning. Maid or even the mother who would go to receive the milk in a vessel, she would look into the vessel and see that there is no dirt in it. Because she knows outside the vessel looks very shiny and clean, but if there is any dirt inside, the milk will get spoiled. So it's like that. We are all busy decorating ourselves on the outside. We wear good dresses, we do good makeup, we look good, we groom ourselves well, but deep inside we don't clean ourselves. And that cleansing of inside is what makes us deserving of the divine grace, not the outside cleaning. All it means is that with that, remember that there is inside of us which is far more important, and we must clean ourselves from the inside. These great people who have lived lives for the greater good of society, they are the examples. You should follow those examples. Try to read those life stories and biographies, autobiographies, and understand how they have gone through this process of purification. And their purification comes only from these 2-3 things. They have done everything for the greater good of all, remembering that that is how they can purify themselves. They never hoarded, they never retained, they never amassed anything more than their need. If there is something more than their need, they always went about looking for somebody and sharing it with them, because they believed God will look after us. And all the time they were mindful of this greater goal of life, which is to realize the divinity within and without. With this idea they have worked, therefore they have achieved great things. So when I was there in Mumbai, and for the first time they brought this idea of faith-based charity, and it seems the larger charity in the world happens based on faith. In the sense, you subscribe to a certain religion, and then as per the religious practices, you do dānam. And most of the cultures of the world, the ancient religions, they all preach charity. We all know that. In Islam, it is zakat, you give a part of your earnings, and you're not supposed to hold anything more than this much earning in a lunar year. There are some measurements. In those times, these were there. Today, I do not know how they calculate. But anything more than that goes to the welfare of the society, for the community. There is Daswan, they say in Sikhism, which is like a tenth of all your earnings. Whether you earn more or less, there's no border or bar there. At least in Islam, there is, if you earn anything more than that, it has to go. In Sikhism, anything you earn, if you earn 10 rupees, 1 rupee goes for the welfare of the society. It's given there. In Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, if you come to, there is no limit only. They say anything that you don't need goes to others. what I keep telling from Isha Upanishad. Tena tyaktena bunjita magruddha kasya svidhanam. Do not take another person's wealth, sacrifice and consume, which means do not take more than your requirement. And even if by chance you have more than what you need, just find ways to share it with those who need it more in greater need than yours. So this is Sanatana Dharma simply says don't even take more than what your need is. So I was talking to them about these things, how it's happening. Then they said, what is the difference between faith-based giving and a pure charity? They think philanthropy is secular giving and faith-based giving is charity. So what is the difference? I said, in today's world, when Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself, obviously he had only few neighbors in the neighborhood that he lived in. But today the whole world is our neighbor, isn't it? We are also connected. We live in a global village. And anything that happens far away in the Middle East or in the Eurasian region, it also affects us. The supply chains get affected, the crop production and distribution gets affected, weather patterns get affected, soil quality, water gets affected, and we all have to live in the same world. Just because the whole is at the other end of the boat does not make us any better. We are going to sink all together sooner or later. So with that idea, the world is one family, one globe, is one neighborhood. And love thy neighbor means loving anybody and everybody. So I was trying to explain to them that while faith-based charity in the ancient times was about helping the people of that faith or that community or that religion, because there was no means of even doing good to somebody on the other end of the world. There was no way you could go out and do something. Communication was not there. Transportation was not there. You had no news of what's going on the other side of the globe. And all these digital payments and, the donation mechanisms were not there. So no organizations were there that will take you to some war-torn region to help you serve others. So those days, limited charity, limited community-based and faith-based giving was the way to look after your communities. And most of the tribes were at war. So you had to look after the welfare of the poor, the women, the children, who were the sufferers. So naturally, it was very common for the religion to say, look after your people well. But in today's times, that has to be broadened. You can't just help somebody because they only belong to your faith or your religion, or they subscribe to your philosophy, and you'd want to see others starve and die because they're not a part of your whatever community and religion. So I was trying to explain to them that now religion and faith should, think of it in a broader way, because everybody's life affects everyone else's life, because we are a very connected world today than what we were 1,000 years ago. So think in a different way. And one case I told them about is that one minister had come here and he was telling about COVID times when his wife was admitted in some hospital, which was again a faith-based charity hospital, and probably they spent 10 to 15 lakh rupees for just the ICU and the oxygen, and no treatments were there in those times. But he, of course, could pay and manage the show. But there was somebody else who was poor and was admitted and could not pay. And this faith-based charity hospital told them, you have to pay the bill, otherwise, we cannot discharge you and things like that. Then they said, we don't have the means to pay it. So they said, do one thing, just subscribe to our God, believe that our God is the only God, and we will waive off the bill. You convert over to our religion, and we will waive off the bill in the name of our Lord. This is what the minister was saying. And imagine for that poor person who has no other way, how will he pay the bill? He will naturally convert or change his faith or change his religion to another one. So this kind of faith-based charity is no charity at all, is what I was trying to explain. Because God is one and all humans are equal in that God's eyes. Then how can you favor somebody and in a way force somebody? It's not fair. And I also mentioned that how one donor for our own hospital was very touched by all this, and he came and met me after that, whatever happened, and he wanted to give some funds for the hospital for the treatment of the poor. But he made it very clear, see, I don't want these funds to be utilized for treating patients of another faith. That is his condition. And our people asked me, this is what he has put, that he doesn't like others being taught or treated who are not belonging to our religion. Then I asked him, what business does he run? He runs a transportation business. So I asked him, in his buses and whatever he runs, only his faith-based people travel or anybody can travel? He said, anybody who pays the ticket for the ticket can travel. When receiving money, you have no problem with faith, the money comes from. While giving, you have a problem. This kind of narrow-minded charity and philanthropy is of no use to the world. You want to help your own. What do you mean by your own? Ayam nijaha paro veti ganana lagu chetasam, it says. These are ours, those are others, is narrow-minded people's approach. The broad-minded ones consider everybody as their own. So the idea of our institutions is what I was trying to present, that we have thought of everyone as our own, very own. So where is the question of me charging some and relieving some of, or absolving some of the charges? No, everybody is equal. So whoever comes, we must look after them like our own. And when we look after them as our very own, we don't charge them, we don't force them into certain ideologies or philosophies or pressurize them to subscribe to our philosophy. That doesn't exist. And that is what makes us different from all other faith-based charities. And I told, I know only of one religion, this is the religion of humanity, and I do not know of another religion. Any other religion is an invention after the first religion of humanity came into existence. So I am the subscriber to the oldest religion of the world, which is human race, and everything else is thereafter. So let us not divide our world into pieces by these narrow-minded approach of these are ours and they are others. And then even charity is taking that color. It happens only because you go to a certain place of worship and you subscribe to a certain religious philosophy or whatever, you are under pressure to look good amongst your community for giving purposes. But then all that is again directed towards people of the same faith, which is unfair, is what I was trying to tell them. I said hunger is same, pain is same, suffering is same, whether you belong to this country or that, this religion or that, everybody suffers the same. Therefore, relief also should be non-discriminatory. That also should go to everybody in equal measures. And they were quite impressed with the idea that, yes, while every faith describes the importance of charity, while, as I said, Sanatana Dharma itself says there are no boundaries, no limits. As long as you don't need it, just give it to somebody whose need is greater. And more than that, I tell that even if you have to sacrifice a bit of your need for somebody whose need is greater, please go ahead and do that. Because that is what makes you a better human, that is what purifies your soul, your mind, and that is what helps you realize your true self. And this is the goal of our life. How do we do it? We do it like everybody is our own family, and therefore we feel for each other. And therefore we do it with each other. We sacrifice and share with each other. It is so simple. I sometimes wonder why this cannot be understood by so many intellectuals and philosophers and thinkers of the world. It is so simple. Just think everybody is your family and behave accordingly. If you can't understand everybody is divine and you have a duty towards the divine, leave it aside. Just believe everybody is a family and deal with them in this right way. That will solve most of the world's problems. And this is what where our organization come into picture. Naturally, needless to say, they were very impressed and they were very inspired by this idea. And I told them that this is not just in theory that I am speaking. That it would be good to do this. These are not commandments given 1,000 years ago. These are today's realities, and this is what is the working model. You come here and see. Every of our hospital and school is a working model of this philosophy. We're not just talking, we are doing and showing how it is done. So that kind of inspired a lot of people around. And still, as I said, we have a long way to go as a human race. And even in 21st century, the kind of problems and divisions and divisive thoughts and whatever. Faith is one of the major reasons, and one of the questions was that too. Why is that, people of eminence and certain positions, they use this faith to create divisions? I said that is their whole agenda. You see, every political group requires an agenda to fight for. And when you have nothing else left, you start dividing people and create agendas for yourself. But if everybody is educated, they will know how to choose their leaders right. They will know whom to vote for, and they will not be brainwashed, and their votes would not be, sold away for pittance, for petty whatever considerations as it happens today. And that is where I am working at grassroots levels to educate children, to help them understand what matters, to help them discern right from wrong and make right choices in their life. That is not possible unless they're educated. Anybody can fool you into any philosophy and emotionally, almost like enslave you into their ideas. And then you simply toe the line. And that is what happens in most of the parts of the world, not just India. Where people subscribe to very narrow ideologies because their education is not the right kind of. They cannot discriminate properly. And they just get emotionally carried away into anything and everything. They cannot think in an objective way. And that is where they choose wrong leaders, and those wrong leaders do wrong things, and it becomes a habit over a period of time to just live with it. So our idea is to educate the children, educate the masses, especially those who cannot afford education. And I always ask, it's after 75 years also, if you still have so much of country uneducated, how is it that we have done anything good in this country? We have big roads, airports. I know all that is one part of the development and growth, but the greater growth would be if every child is in school, everybody is fed, everybody is sheltered, has access to basics like water, health. These are the basic things. If this we have not achieved, we have not achieved anything. And my feeling is that this has not been achieved because the people at the helm of affairs have made sure it remains this way, because that is where their selfish agendas get served well. So we cannot go and fight with them in that way, but our fight is at the grassroots level, where we educate children and make them aware of their rights and responsibilities, make them enlightened citizens who choose the right things, right people, and do the right things in their lifetime. And that is the kind of work that we are doing, is what I was trying to explain to them. And what you are a part of, as Narasimhamurthy said, you are part of that great human capital that India possesses. Unfortunately, it is not up to the mark because it does not have the right kind of education and opportunities. But once you have it, each one of you is capable of pulling out thousands more from this abyss of, inequality, poverty, and more importantly, ignorance, where they make wrong decisions. And I will hope that in 25 years we'll achieve a country where everybody is educated, and educated rightly, not just materially but spiritually, so that they make the right choices, they choose the right leaders, and that's how the country goes in the right direction. And if that becomes an example, it will spread to the rest of the world. And I hope that each one of you will also think deeply about your role and your responsibilities in this great mission of transformation of the country, transformation of the world. And as I mentioned, the whole world is become very small. It's a small global village, and we are all neighbors today. So we cannot afford not to love somebody who is in another country too, because someday or the other, we are going to be affected by what happens over there. So creating a more equitable, more just, more fair society through the actions of the greater good of all, sacrifice for the betterment of all, and constant reminder of our true purpose, true goal of life, yajña, dāna, tapas. These three things, if we can keep in mind, I think we can do a lot good to the world. So much depends on you. We can only show the way, but further walking on it is your responsibility, and that is your role, and that is your privilege that you have got a role like this. So consider yourself blessed and make yourselves worthy of this opportunity and honor that has come your way.